Hi, everybody. My name is Jeremy. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Jeremy. We love you, Jeremy. Lots and lots and lots.
Thank you. Before I get into it, I'm just going to take 5 minutes and talk about NHSCYPAA. NHSCYPAA what? So the young people's meeting that Whitney talked about, that was my first young people's meeting ever. I walked in, I had heard about young people's, and I was like, this is weird. And right away, two young ladies came up and introduced themselves, made me feel welcome. They told me about this wacky thing called NHSCYPAA. I went to it, and I've been involved ever since. And I don't live in New Hampshire anymore. And if you know that Friday is not always, but typically reserved for maybe like the local speaker. So it really is like coming home. I was on host when NHSCYPAA was in Keene. We put the bid together. We won that. We put on that conference. And then I joined advisory, which is a rather thankless job. So thank you, advisory. Host wasn't much more thankful either, but at least you got to sit up here and get clapped at. So I went on advisory, and so it's just wonderful to be back. NHSCYPAA has a real big place in my heart, and I also met my wife at NHSCYPAA. Yeah. So a lot of good things, and I'm extremely grateful. So let's get into it. So I don't know if I was born an alcoholic. I don't really care. We don't need to figure it out or debate it or talk about genealogy or anything like that. But the way this illness is described, I'm pretty sure that this thing that we now articulately label as the spiritual malady, I'm pretty sure I had that from day one. I did not feel okay inside. And I was aware of it. I wasn't aware of how okay I was not inside, but like it was definitely this thing that it was not okay to be Jeremy. And as far back as I remember, I had that feeling and those thoughts. I'm a twin, so I have a sibling, a brother, and my dad said, when you were born, you were born angry, which I thought was very heartfelt. Thanks, Dad, right? And so, he looked at my brother, Jonathan. He's, sleeping peacefully. And then there's Jeremy's. You were screaming your head off and you never stopped. And that was just what it was like. It was just, uncomfortable inside. And it was always loud in here and it never shut up. And it was always comparing to other people. And I wasn't tall enough or rich enough or good looking enough. And even when I was a little kid, nobody wanted to be my friend. And I could tell that. I had proof because I would look at you and I knew that you didn't want to be my friend. Because I could tell what you were thinking about, and whatever it was about me, and it was never good. So it was just on and on these thoughts would go, and I had no idea. It was basically like a low-level discomfort. I didn't have a terrible childhood. It wasn't comfortable. I didn't think it was great, but it wasn't. No major things happened to me. But it's just low-level discomfort. But the thing I didn't realize is how uncomfortable I was, because I pretty much was always experiencing this. And there were times that were okay too and good. I had happy moments, but discomfort. So I had no idea how uncomfortable I was until I got comfortable, right? And the first time I got comfortable was the first time I got drunk. I was at a high school party. I think I was in middle school. And my sister was older than me. And, I had been to plenty of parties before, and I never drank. I didn't take any drugs. I didn't hang out. I just always passed on them. I didn't really see what the appeal was, and I was afraid. Plus, I didn't, really want anything to do with that. But this particular party, there was just something that felt like it would be okay. A girl that liked me, and I didn't like her, but she liked me, so thus I felt okay inside. And she pushed a drink my way, and it wasn't peer pressure. I just drank it, and I felt an unquenchable thirst for more. And before I even finished, it was a really tall screwdriver. Before I finished that drink, I knew I was going to get another one. And I got, really, really drunk, and I, made out with that girl that I didn't like on the couch in front of the whole party, and everybody just got up and left me there. It was just, I remember before I, threw up everywhere. I had a distinct aha moment. Yes, I was drunk, but like something clicked in my head. It was a profound realization. I was about to make myself another drink, and then I realized, it was like, ping. It's like, I did not know you could feel this good. Like, I unwound for the first time ever. I could breathe in and out. It was absolutely okay to just be Jeremy. Prior to that, never okay. And the thought that immediately preceded that was, I wonder if you can feel like this all the time. Right? Prior to this experience, I don't want drink. I don't want anything to do with it. I have one experience. I want to feel like this always. So I was probably setting myself up for failure. So, I woke up the next day. I was very sick, extremely hungover, violently ill, worst hangover I ever had to date. And, I was in a lot of trouble, and my sister was mad at me, and I was embarrassed and all this stuff. And I told myself, well, I'm never going to do that again. And I don't know if that meant the hangover or the drunk, probably both. But I stayed away from alcohol on my own willpower, probably for the last time ever. And about 6 months later, I ran away from home. I got in a fight with my dad. I developed a near bottle a day habit. I tried 4 or 5 drugs in less than a week, and I was out and running. And, that was the rest of high school. I did graduate. I went to a local community college. This is all in Rockland County, New York. It's where I grew up, so it's right outside of Manhattan. And, I started to party there an awful lot. I went to community college, did that for the 2 years, didn't even get an associate's, and then moved on to, higher education, which is pretty tough to do. I was at that time, my drinking was not yet continuous, but there my drinking took on more serious proportions. And it's just the truth. And that's what university was like, and it was difficult. That was like real school, not community college, which is like 13th grade. So I had trouble. So my solution, because I always think my ideas are great, my solution was, since my girlfriend was on pain management, and I had a very serious fake injury, very serious, that I should get on pain management too, because that will solve my problems. And then, of course, withdraw from college. So I did that, and so she and my girlfriend at the time, she and I doctor shopped and did the whole running and doing that for, 2-3 years. Eventually that escalated into a lot of runs to Paterson, New Jersey, intravenous drug use, criminal activity. I had a summer from hell, lots of consequences in a short amount of time, crashed and burned, everybody found out, not even welcome back in college. And so I got, shuffled into detox, which was crazy embarrassing. But at the time, it seemed like a really good idea. Because it was my idea. Because I was, sick and tired of being sick and tired. So, I was sick all the time. It sucked. The party was long over. But the thing was, my plan was, well, I'll go to detox, because clearly something's wrong. I'll get off the sauce, and I'll go back to drinking and partying and going to clubs and concerts and shows, just because I was really good at it, and why would I stop? They had other plans. Wow. That was not their plan. So I got out, and I took the suggestions that they were telling me to do. So they said, go to 90 meetings, 90 days, and get a sponsor and a home group and make coffee. And I did all the things, and all went well for a time. It was okay. It seemed pretty lame. And I knew I was much too young to be an alcoholic, but I thought I gave it a sincere attempt. And then somewhere in between 90 days and 6 months, because I know this because I got my 90-day chip, and I did not get my 6-month chip, somewhere in between, the old idea that I could drink in safety came back. And it always seems like I just changed my mind. Like, I'll just give myself a reprieve. And I keep thinking this and share it in meetings, and people said, keep on coming, and, just go to more meetings. So I went to more meetings, and I shared with my sponsor, and on and I just want to drink. So I had this idea, again, here my plans go. It's a good one. That I'm definitely too young to be an alcoholic. This is like 20 years ago. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, because, again, I was back in New York right outside the city, and so there was like a 3-day-long Halloween black and blue fetish ball. So I was going to go to this, I was going to drink, and I'm sure it will be fine. And if it gets bad, is my backup plan, because I'm extra smart, I'll just come back to AA. The doors are always open. Why wait? Yeah, let's go. So I went, I drank. I had an awesome time. So, I went to this, because I used to go to clubs all the time. So I go there, and there's this fetish model. She has a giant purple mohawk. I had a crush on this girl for like a year before I tried to get sober. And there she is. So I start drinking and dancing and schmoozing with her. And I feel great. There was a porn star there. She asked if she could come home with me. And then right? This is my first night out. I remember, there's all those, those crotchety old timers, they sit in the back of the room. You go back out there, kid, it just gets worse. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, between the fetish model and the porn star, it just gets worse. I don't think so, Grandpa. Like, think about it. I didn't get shot. I didn't get stabbed. I did not throw up. I didn't get thrown out. I drove home. I didn't get pulled over. Everything is fine. I knew it. I was right. This kind of thinking, by the way, I'm not bragging. I never slept with either one of those women. This is not, that was the highlight of the night, just like them being there. That was it. Nothing. So that's not bragging. But I was baffled. They said it's baffling. It was. And but this type of thinking is described very clearly in the big book. It says, at times it seems that we've regained control. That's what it looked like, especially that night. While those times, usually brief, are followed by still less control, which lead in time to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. And that's exactly what happened. So I stayed out for 6 years. Soon thereafter, I became a daily drinker again. I was desperate to get in college, and I actually got back in. I couldn't believe it. I graduated. Last year, I had a 3.5 GPA. Look, I'm fine. I'm golden. All I had to do is graduate college, and then I'll grow up and get out of this town and get a real job, get real money, stop drinking so much, don't take any of that other stuff, and I'll be fine. And I graduated, and I became a 24/7, round-the-clock daily drinker. I could not go for more than 4 hours without a drink. I woke up every day with the onset of delirium tremens or drunk from the night before, unless I was taking opiates, which happened occasionally. It was not year after year at that point. And the mind and body are marvelous mechanisms, for mine endured that agony 2 more years. And I stayed in the same job, doing the same town, same thing day in, day out. A series of events landed me into recovery and coming to New England. I got into a fight. My girlfriend almost broke up. It's like the real typical, I lost my job. Everything happened. I lost my car, I lost my girlfriend, I lost my job, I got arrested, I died a couple times. And, and on and on and on, these things go. And eventually, the boss that came over and fired me for finding out about all these things that had happened, I basically got an invitation from my parents to come to Vermont and go to detox, and let's try this one more time. And I said, that sounds like a good idea. So I did. And before I had it was just a vain attempt. It was to appease people, and I can't tell you how many times I've detoxed on my own couch, or I'll drink less, or this, it won't be like last time. When I moved to Vermont, I moved there for the sole purpose of getting and staying sober, to attain and maintain sobriety. That was it, and I meant it. I was through. Life could be really boring, hanging out with the losers club. That's what I thought. But at least I won't have to do this anymore, because it was not worth it, and it hadn't been fun in years. So I go to detox, went to the Rhode retreat. It's where Abby Thatcher went. And I got out, and I went back to AA, and I got a sponsor and a home group, and I got and I was making coffee at my home group with my sponsor, and all went well for a time. And I just thought, you just show up, you go to meetings, and, my life would be maybe a little boring, but you just stay sober. And I was grateful. And they told me, grateful heart will never drink. I was like, yes! Super grateful. And then I drank. And I couldn't figure out why. It was the day I got my 6-month coin. I've been never more sober in my entire life. Why did I drink? That makes no sense. I didn't know. I didn't know what I was dealing with, so I thought it was just a momentary weakness. So I went to more meetings, and I showed up early, and I stayed late, and I stacked chairs, and I went on a lot of rides with a lot of grumpy old alcoholics to the hills of Vermont. And then I drank again. And then I drank again and again, and I cannot figure out. One time I went to 3 meetings in one day. I showed up early, I stayed late, I raised my hand, I called people, I said I want to drink. And I heard a lot of things, especially at that 3rd meeting, that, people would tell me that I know not exactly my truth. They told me that meeting makers make it, and I made it to an awful lot of meetings, and I kept drinking. They said, hey, kid, just put the plug in. That was my name, Kid. Everybody was, there were no young people. I was Kid. And they said, put the plug in the jug. Okay, I put the plug in the jug. Eventually, I'd take the plug out, I'd drink that jug, and then I'd go get another one, because I can't not. They said, just don't drink no matter what. unfortunately, my experience is I drink no matter what. I am powerless. I can't not. Now, this doesn't make me like an upper echelon of alcoholic or better than the guy that comes in the door and just stops. There is definitely something here. Now, some people can stay sober on what's here. Doesn't mean that I can, and I couldn't, and I just couldn't figure out why. So it's not the fault of the slogan sayers, although I don't really entirely agree with all of them, is a lot of people were trying to help me, and there was a great amount of resistance to it. Because it says in the book, to be doomed to an alcoholic death or live a life on a spiritual basis are not easy alternatives to face. Very true for this guy. So I remember the first AA meeting I ever went to was that first detox. I walk in, and there's the window shades, and it says, pray and meditate and God and turn your will in your life. And I was like, I'm all set. Like, good for you people. But like, this guy is just never going to happen. Sorry. I mean, I remember I told myself internally, because I didn't have the guts to say it out loud, I'm pretty sure I'd rather die than believe in your fake God. It's not going to happen. Which is weird, because I did die, and I came back to AA, and I'm still not down. When I returned to AA, I would have described myself as the guy who's violently anti-religious. I do not use the term lightly. I was extremely opposed to all spiritual terms. I literally bristled with antagonists at the mere mention of spiritual terms. This little vein would pop out of my head, and I had all the arguments with these old-timers. I remember this one guy, Don, he's still alive. He's still sober, almost 50 years. And he'd be like, hey, kid, you hating your knees? And I'd be like, no. No, I am not. And they meant well. And they're all talking about this. They're trying to help me. They're like, oh, it doesn't have to be God. It could be higher power. And so, first of all, not stupid. I know you mean God. You can't trick me. And I actually thought the higher power, like that was a Vermont, like a hippie term. Like, oh, higher power, kumbaya, let's go hug a tree. Like, I didn't actually know that it's in the big book. They say that everywhere. So that's, when you walk into the room prejudice, that's, that's what you're going to get. So, and I just, I could not swallow that pill. I could not believe in something I just don't believe in. And these were loving people. It was kind of a dead zone for Big Book. But there's a lot of higher power talk, and they did absolutely love me, and they're trying to help me. And they would say things like, well, your higher power can be anything you want. And I said, I'm pretty sure I would like it to be nothing. And then they said absurd things like, oh, your higher power can be a light bulb. I was like, that is so dumb. Do you hear yourself? Light bulbs burn out. They break. Is that your God? There was a lot of defiance in me. Like, about a third of my body is covered in tattoos, and they were put there by a Satanist. And I would let people know in the meeting, just to make them uncomfortable. Of course, it didn't work. Old timers. They're like, oh, that's great, kid. Keep coming. They don't care. But I'm having a real hard time, and I kept drinking. And I drank again and again, and I can't figure this whole thing out. And one particularly bad relapse, I had a fleeting thought. That's important for you to know that it just like it says in the book, it was fleeting and soon lost. So it came in and it went out. But I'd love to share this story. I think it helps a lot of people. So I had this idea that I could do this thing for a higher power. Has anyone ever seen the movie Star Wars? Yeah? Okay. So even if you haven't, just play along. It's fine. So I didn't play football in high school. I played Dungeons and Dragons. So I've always been this big nerd. And so I had this thought that I could make the Force my higher power. Yeah. So what I didn't know then, but what I do know now, is I had the keys to the kingdom. If you think about it, so in the movie Star Wars, it describes the Force is what gives a Jedi Knight his power, right? In this book, it says lack of power. That was my dilemma. I had to find a power by which I could live, and it had to be a power greater than myself. That makes sense. In the movie Star Wars, it says the Force binds the galaxy together, right? In this book, this describes a higher power. It's the spirit of the universe. Galaxy, universe, that's pretty similar. Okay, that makes sense. In the movie Star Wars, it says a Jedi can feel the Force flowing through him, right? Third step promise. We felt new power flow in. Makes perfect sense. So, actually, in one of the later movies, there's this guy, Luke, who's talking to this other guy, Yoda. That's his grand sponsor. And he's trying to figure out if the dark side of the Force is more powerful than the light. And what Yoda tells him, no, it isn't, but it is quicker and more seductive. It talks about that in here too. We tried to find an easier and softer way, but we could not. Right? Makes perfect sense. I also, this is all hindsight, I didn't know that George Lucas studied a lot of Eastern religions and philosophies when coming up with the Force. I mean, think about it. Yoda, Buddha, that's the same dude. Come on. Perfect sense. And I also didn't know that William James, he's talked about a bunch in the Big Book. He directly influenced the writing of the Big Book. He had this famous book called Varieties of Religious Experience, and in the back of that book, he called all of these religious convergent experience, he summed it up into one godlike phrase, and he simply called it the more. Capital M-O-R-E. The more. If you don't know, William James is the father of American psychology. They literally named a college after him. He was a professor at Harvard. If that guy can call it the more, then this guy can call it the Force. Right? I had the keys to the kingdom and I threw it away. Because as soon as I had that thought, I just pushed it aside. I said, that is so stupid. Don't tell anyone that, Jeremy. That is so dumb. And if you do that, it means that they broke you. It means you drank the Kool-Aid. And you're just going to be another religious nut job. So just get in line, sheep. So I did nothing. And then I drank again. And then I drank again and again. The last time I got drunk, I was drunk for 2 weeks straight. In the middle of that somewhere, I picked up a bundle of tokes. It seemed like a good idea. And I was extremely ill for the last 5 days, but I drank anyway. And when I finally came to, I was puking blood, and stomach bile was coming out of my nose, and it was seeping out of my tear ducts. And I was greatly disturbed. Not because this was happening to me, because this had been happening to me. That happened to me several times. In that moment, two things clicked. One was a realization that this time I was certainly going to die. Two was more disturbing than that, was I realized I had no idea how to stay sober. I just couldn't do it. No, in that moment, it was the only thing I wanted, and I couldn't do it. So in this complete defeat, the only thing that I could think to do was to call Howard. So Howard was my grand sponsor at the time. He was an elderly gentleman. He was the core and center of our home group. And I knew he could meet me at the Friday afternoon meeting because this was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I went over there and I met with Howard. And we went into a little side playroom to talk. And I sat down in this embarrassing Fisher-Price little kiddie table. I spilled my guts. I told Howard everything that was going on and what I had done in my relapse. And I told him I can't stop. I absolutely cannot stop. And Howard made the point-blank declaration that God had done for him what he could not do for himself. And Howard had been sober longer than I'd been alive. And my ideas about miracles were drastically revised right then. Never mind all my old ideas or, what is it going to look like? There sat a miracle directly across the table. And he shouted, "Great tidings." So Howard asked me to do the only thing that I was never willing to do. He said, "Pray with me." I said, okay. We got on our knees. He took my hands, and I don't know if Howard said anything at all. And I don't know if I spoke it or if I thought it, but I know I said, please, just help me. Please. I walked out of that room a free man. I've never had the obsession, desire, compulsion to drink or take any other drugs from that moment to this. My sobriety date is February 5th, 2011, and so for a little over 11 years. Quite important was the discovery that spiritual principles would solve all of my problems. I have since been brought into a way of life infinitely more satisfying, and I hope more useful than my last. I've been risen from the scrap heap to a level of life better than the best I've ever known. Like the room got real bright, this huge weight was lifted from me, and I woke up the next morning on fire. And I said, I absolutely need more of that. And I don't know how to get it. And I went to and I know it sounds like I'm bashing and being critical. I apologize if I am. This is the truth. I ran around the halls of Alcoholics Anonymous for the next 18 months trying to figure out what was next. And I heard that meeting makers make it and shoot for midnight and just put the plug in the jug and you'll be all right and just don't drink no matter what. And I said, that doesn't work for me. No, seriously, like what's next? And I heard more of the same, and I just can't hang. And like I know that might be your experience, but it's definitely not mine. What's next? And I started listening to like some speaker tapes and some big book workshops, and I was like, wow, that's different. And I was on a hunt. It was. And eventually I met a man whose whole deportment shouted that he was a man with a real answer. The lights were on and somebody was actually home. This kid, and I say kid on purpose, talked a different language. He was younger than I was by a bunch, and he was sober twice as long. And I immediately trusted him. And he said, go to this meeting, this big book meeting in Keene, see my friend Bruce. He could probably help you. Bruce carried a message of depth and weight. He knew what he was not perfect. He was actually in a really bad spot, but he knew what he was talking about when working the steps out of this book. And I asked him to sponsor me and take me through the work. He said he would be honored to do so. And he really meant it. Like this was a really, really big deal to this guy. And then I said, what's next? And Bruce always knew what was next because someone had taken the time to take him through. He said, next, I want you to read the doctor's opinion up to page 63 and stop where I tell you to stop. I want to underline things that are important, significant, circular words you're not familiar with, look that word up, write it directly in the margin, and when we're all done, we'll read that together. And I did that. When we're all done, we read it together. And I clearly saw that A, I'm alcoholic and cannot manage my own life. B, that probably no human power can relieve me of my alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought. I immediately made a decision to do something about it. I did a third step prayer. On my knees, I offered myself to God as I then understand him. I don't understand him now, and that's perfectly fine. I immediately put pen to paper. I wrote a fourth step. It was fearless and thorough from the very start. And I tell you, I have a fantastic memory, and I've been neurotic since birth. So it was 2,200 pages long. When I was done with it, I read it to my sponsor. It took me 70 hours just to read the thing to him. I clearly saw I did not want to be that guy anymore. I was really willing to do something about it, and I asked God to take it, and I did 6 and 7. So I went home, and I made a list of all persons I had harmed, and I was willing to make amends to them all. And I went out and made amends to them all. I made every single amends, directly or indirectly, and I paid back every single dime. So what I do on a daily basis, I continue to take personal inventory. I right the wrongs as they come up. I open and close my day with prayer and meditation. I do a nightly review every single day. And I sponsor a bunch of guys and, a couple different steps, and I practice these principles in all my affairs, and I don't do a very good job at that, but I work really, really hard at it, and I think that's the point. And I carry this message, and I don't just do it here. I just do it in jails, institutions, detoxes, halfway houses, sober houses, potlucks, roundups, conventions, and plain ordinary whoopee parties. And I have had a spiritual awakening as the result. And I'm not the same, in a good way. And after emerging from this, transformative event, I just plowed through sobriety, and I got really busy, really active. I completed, I think, my 12-step when, I think shortly after, we hosted NHSCYPAA. And I started sponsoring guys, and I've never been without a sponsee. I don't have those sponsees today, but it has carried through the whole way, and it has kept me sober. I will definitely talk a little bit later about, dark days, because sometimes dark days are coming. I would love to share a couple of stories if we got time. about some of the transformative events and just amazing awakenings that I had as a result of that work. One of my favorite stories to tell. Some of the biggest resentments that I had, and again, I had tons of them. I was really mad at my parents. I blamed them for a tremendous amount of things, which is weird because they were pretty good parents. Like, my dad was angry a lot, but childhood was okay. But I blamed them for a lot, and one of the biggest things I held against them is I was held back in second grade, so that's when my parents chose to do that. It's not the school. School thought it was an okay idea, but it was my parents that did it. And right off the bat, I immediately tell myself, okay, well, that means I'm stupid, and my parents don't love me, and nobody cares because the school didn't care. I was mortified. It really hurt, but like I said, I'm a twin, so you can't hold one twin back without holding the other. So they held him back too, and he didn't need to, really. And so then, thus, you can go to Al-Anon now. Sorry. So, but that's how I felt inside. My brother hates me, and it's all my fault. And I just proceeded through the rest of life that I'm stupid, nobody cares about me, my parents don't love me, and it's all my fault. And a lot of the actions I took were based on those assumptions that I had about myself. And it was just tough, and I was always angry growing up, and they could never figure out why. And this cool thing that happened to me, when I was writing my 4-step, it was pretty long, took me a while. I was so busy in AA, both as outreach chair for NHSCYPAA and going to meetings and just being that new, sober vibe that, from 0 to 2 years just seems to happen, which is a beautiful thing. And my sister requested that I just come over, like you're never around, we never see you. She lived in the same road, on the same piece of property as my parents did, where I was living, and so I said, fine. I was like, I really don't want to be here, but fine. And I showed up, and, immediately I'm like, I don't want to be here. It smells like she had a dog. It was a mangy dog. It smelled. And I was just like, oh, she's like this little infant running around like it smells. I don't want to be here. So anyway, so we sit down. We're eating dinner. We're chatting, and she's actually commenting about how nice it is. She lives on the same piece of property as my parents do. They retired to Vermont, and how nice it is because mom and dad are around. They can watch her little boy. Especially because mom and dad were never around. And I immediately jumped into that resentment because what I thought is my parents held me back because I'm not good at spelling, reading, or writing. And I wasn't. And the reason I'm not good at those things is because my parents never helped me with my homework because they were never home. They never read to me when I was a little kid as a bedtime story. And they don't care, and this is why I'm stupid. And all of a sudden, I'm having this normal chat with my sister, and immediately I start regurgitating all these resentments, and that's what resentment is, to refill, bring it up. It never goes away. It's always in the back of my mind, and I bring it out, and how mom and dad always worked so late, and they were never around, and I had to do all these things by myself. And as I'm regurgitating all these past woes, I feel this little tug, tug, tug on my pant leg, and I look down, and there's her little boy. And I'm looking at him, and he's doing this. He had a little story in his hand. And I was like, what the hell is this? And what she said was, he wants you to read him a story. I was like, okay. So I pick up the little tyke, I put him on my knee, and I read him that story. And when we're all done, he gets down, goes over to the little shelf, grabs another book, and brings it back. So I read him another story. And another. This happened like 4, maybe 5 times. And somewhere, I got free. I saw that my parents worked super late on their own business to provide for 3 children. My sister was only a year and a half older, so my parents had 3 kids in less than 2 years. Wrap your head around that. Yeah, wow. Jeremy wasn't thinking, well, my parents have it really hard, when I was like angry and bitter and I never got what I wanted and they didn't do things. They're totally stressed out. No wonder my dad's angry all the time, right? And I saw that they did not only the best that they could, they did a pretty good job. Things were not perfect, but it was an amazing revelation. And not only that, I was always mad my parents never get me a bedtime story. I would have, prior to the experience, gladly deprived that little boy of that experience simply because I felt I was denied it. Just mind blown. That might not be so significant to you, but it was huge to me. And in that moment, I got free. That's what the work is about. It's about getting free. I saw the window shades, and I read them, and the things that I had to do, and it looked like this is the punishment the penance that I have to do in order to stay sober. And yeah, I have to right wrongs and clean things up. But what it has really enabled me to do, to have a relationship with the power greater than myself, and also to just get free. How free do you want to be? See, today I have a little boy of my own. His name is Howard. I have a stack of bedtime stories like this big. It's my favorite thing. But you know what? I get caught up in the making the money and the jobs and the work and the fixing of the house, all the same things my parents do. I remember one time I had to go fix things. My house always needs to be fixed. I was going to fix this thing, and my little boy comes up and he immediately wants to be picked up, and he's going, outside, outside. He wants to go outside and play, and I couldn't because I had to go do stuff. And it's like, oh, ow. But like, I got it. So things come full circle. This is the kind of freedom that was afforded me as a result of doing the 12 steps out of the big book. You know, my amends have been incredible. The amends of my mom was probably the most, because like, I just wasn't there. And I was always angry. And they always thought it was their fault. Like, they just couldn't ever get me to stop being angry. And due to the amends process and this work and, you know, everything really that comes after it, because the amends was great. It was very powerful. But really, especially when it's like close loved ones, relatives, kids, parents, siblings, husband, wives, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, it's really everything that comes after. It's the practicing these principles in all my affairs. And, I mean, might as well start talking about that now. It could take a while. It's more important, yet it's probably the thing that I struggle with the most. I've been wanting to talk about this for quite some time. The last 3 years have been really colorful, and I'm not just talking about COVID. We're very blessed. We have 2 kids. But in the last 3 years, we went from pregnant with 1 to having 2, almost all in the times of COVID. So my son was born, and then 5 days later, the nation shut down. So nobody could come see him. We were isolated. And I wasn't doing well spiritually. And I look back at this time, and, you know, still not doing great. I'm doing better than I was, but I could always check off the boxes. I'm that kind of guy. And I do a lot of this work. I definitely do more 12-step work than probably all of my sponsees. It's just something that I've always done. I've built this routine. But I could check meditating, check I have sponsees, check I'm praying, you know, and then I go about the rest of my day, self-will run riot, you know, like I bought this house and this like slumlord, you know, hit all this stuff on me, and I just want to kill him every night, and I'm thinking about stabbing him and, like, you know, taking him down to the basement and just making him disappear. And it's like, this is what my mind is like. You too could be sober for over a decade and think about killing people. Keep coming. So, I mean, I know it's a lot more important to watch our actions, but I still have to watch my thoughts. It's like, it's not okay to just think whatever you want, and then as long as your actions are in check. I mean, all actions are born in thought anyway. But it was just a very difficult time, and I was going through the motions, and you know, I even got a home group because we moved. I've lived in 5 different states and in 11 different cities since being sober. And I've been able to form connections with a lot of YPAA, young people's meetings, and the like. So I don't want to be homeless in AA. So I found a home group and I got involved. I got a job in that home group, and it really enabled me to slowly come out of this funk that I was in, just resentful I can't even get it, and it was really hard on my wife, really hard. It's just hard for parents in general to have 2 little kids in the middle of a pandemic, and, we're dealing with this gigantic house that I'm trying to, fix up and all sorts of stuff. So life got interesting. But even though I was just checking off the boxes, I still showed up every day as a person in recovery who needs to continue this work, because that's the reality. In the last 3 years, I've seen a lot of people go back out, a lot of people die. I mean, that happens all the time. And, COVID didn't really change all that much, but I saw a lot of my friends just, I don't go to AA anymore. And I can't say that, you're going to die, you're doomed, you're bound to relapse. I mean, I think it sometimes, but I don't, God only knows. I do. I'm like, it's only a matter of time. I don't know that. I don't. That's just my head telling me that. But I got to tell you, it's been disturbing. It's like, where do I need to be? What do I need to be doing? And what I did is, looking in retrospect, what I've been doing is a lot of damage control. It's all been, I screwed up, let me go apologize. I was restless, irritable, and discontent, the last 3 years. Let me go and try and clean it up, or tell my wife I'm sorry, or work more and get more money to fix this thing that I messed up. On and on and on. And I'm not taking any proactive action other than checking the boxes. Yep, meditate. Yep, got sponsees. Yep, praying. Yep, got a home group. Job in that home group. So it's not like doing those things is bad, but I was just doing it because I need to check off the box, because that's what you do in order to stay sober. And then again, just going self-will run riot. So a lot of things have changed and being involved. I dove in and just did a huge amount of 10-step writing. If you don't want to write 10 steps, you don't have to. There's some debate about whether you write it or not. I write them. My personal experience is vastly more superior, beneficial if I write them out. And I looked at it, I wrote out a bunch of resentments, and then, I was going to finish writing them all out. And I had resentments that I wrote out that I hadn't read in over a year. Just hanging out in COVID land, just working from home, just just going to keep on writing. Slowly. I write half of one every morning, and eventually they'll get done, right? Doesn't really cut it. It's not the guy on fire, that's for sure. It's just, it's meh. Yay, sobriety. So that's where I've been, and it's not a fun place. I made it. I stayed sober. I didn't drink. My wife is still with me, thank God. It was not, I was not all well. And I'm never going to be all well, but, I've done a lot better. I was not at my best, and it was painfully obvious to a lot of people around me. So my suggestion to myself was to get fully entrenched in AA again. And I got even more active, and I really had to take a look at the inventory that I wasn't writing. And I had to start meditating for 20 minutes. This whole, I'll meditate 5, maybe 10 minutes. That may be awesome for you. I'm literally not judging this time. That's what I did for a long time, and it worked. I needed to sit and get quiet for 20 minutes because my head would not shut up. It was going. And, lack of sleep from little kids is never fun either. And life has gotten a whole lot better. It's amazing how my problems seem to clear themselves up, and just solutions seem to happen and come about when I am not fighting life and just asking God for help and being willing to go on the path that has been shown to me. It's crazy. Your all conference is, fourth dimension, okay? It says in the directions of the fourth step, we launched on a course of vigorous action. Launched, right? Right before you're going to write your fourth step. Launched. Well, if you're going to be rocketed to the fourth dimension, there has to be a launch. Well, here it is. Buckle your seatbelts, boys and girls. It's going to be a bumpy ride. So I wanted to talk a couple of things, just because we're at a YPAA. You're all going to have a great time this weekend. There are a couple of things that, when I first got sober, it was so bad I didn't care what life really looked like. But I was pretty sure that life was going to be totally boring. Fun is over. You're never going to go out and party. I'm never going to meet, any woman that, wants to have an interesting life. And it's just, that's it. And YPA's obviously changed that for me. But I have this story that I would like to tell. The first AA meeting I ever went to, it was on a Saturday afternoon, and this commitment, it's 4 or 5 different ladies came in to this hospital, this detox I was at. So right off the bat, I was like, wow, what a bunch of lame losers. You have nothing better to do on a Saturday afternoon than come to a hospital? What is wrong with you? So first of all, I started judging them right off the bat, and they were going down the line, and they were talking about how their experience, but mostly how cool AA was and sobriety's wonderful and you should come to a meeting when you get out of here. And I was like, right. And we got to this last lady. I still remember what she looks like, what she said. I remember everything. And I remember she was talking about how awesome sobriety is. And oh my gosh, it's so cool. We have so much fun. Oh, sobriety is great. We go bowling. I was like, are you serious? Like, really? I swear to God, I almost fell out of my seat. Like, bowling? Really? Like, that's what you have to sell me? Like, I remember I used to go, like, to clubs in Europe. They would be open till 7 o'clock in the morning. There'd be, like, half-naked chicks in, like, metal cages swinging from the ceiling. Like, I'm supposed to give that up for bowling? Are you kidding me? So I've been bowling several times in sobriety. I had a really good time. I highly recommend it. Go bowling! I used to live in Massachusetts too, and the Boston. There you go. Took you less than 45 minutes. Good job. The Boston bid for NHSCYPAA would go. They have their turkey bowl every the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and I'd done it many times. So I had a great time. And there have been a lot of cool and quote-unquote fun things that I've done and do in sobriety. But what I didn't know that more than just having fun, because look at it from a drunk's perspective. I need to feel good and be elated all the time, otherwise I cannot exist in this world. It's not true. But that's what I felt. It was a lie. So more than having fun, which I have and still do, sobriety was an extremely rewarding way of life. Like, I have a life of value and substance. I have a sense of purpose. Does anybody else, because I remember, I don't know if you can identify, does anyone else remember? I remember I would wander through life having no clue what I was doing, who I was, why I was here, what life was about, like zero. Right? Like, and I did it a lot, and the only thing that would really quell that was drinking. Because now I drink and get drunk and I didn't care. Who cares? So, sobriety, I have that sense of purpose and direction. It's not perfect. I still like, is this the right thing to do? Or, it still comes up. There are some insecurities. And by the way, that promise, financial insecurity will leave us. It doesn't say it will stay gone. Pretty much my existence the last 3 years. Financial insecurity every day. But it's getting a whole lot better. Why did I have that? Because I put myself in a position to be hurt. And I'm continually trusting and relying on money in order to feel good. In order to be okay, to look like a success, to be an achievement. And this brings me to my next young sobriety thing. When I was, because I lived in Quincy and in Braintree, I had a great time, went to a lot of young people's, and I used to be a member of the Garage Group. That was my home group.
Yeah, me too.
Well, one big happy family. I remember, because it's densely populated and there's a lot of, let's call them solution-based sober living houses. And I would speak at them a lot, like at least once a week for a couple of years. And it was an incredible experience. And I would go and I'd speak maybe 45 minutes and we talk about the book, talk about the solution in the book, and that how we have one program, and that's what the AA program is. It's in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And you basically had to work the steps. I guess you could fluff it if you really wanted to, but you had to work the steps in order to stay at these sober living environments. And I would see most of them were men. I'd see a lot of guys, they would get on fire too, and they'd get into the work, and then they go back out to not drinking, but they'd go out into the non-sober living world, and they'd get the girl back, they get the job, and then they had to get the car, and then this, and then that, and then this. And I can identify and relate with all of those things. It's human nature. Of course, why would you not want those things, especially since you couldn't have them before, alcohol took everything away, so to speak. But the problem is, a lot of them would do the work, and then eventually, oh, they're too busy for the work, or I have to do, I got this job, or I'm too busy, or, I'm dating this girl. And the work no longer became paramount. And then without knowing it, that car, or that girl, or that guy, whoever, the experience, whatever it is, the shine wore off. So whatever it is, the new tattoo, or the car, the motorcycle, the six-pack abs, whatever, the perfect tan, the money, the bank account, the house, whatever it is, the shine always wears off. Because my experience is, if I make this thing, whatever this thing is, what makes me okay inside, with or without my knowledge, I've made that thing my higher power. And the shine always wears off. Because I'm making it, because then, my boss is an a-hole, or he's not paying me enough, or, or the car's, that guy's got a nicer car, or, my girlfriend, we always fight. Whatever the case may be, the shine always wears off. God's shine does not wear off. It does not fade. It does not lose its luster. It neither waxes nor wanes. So if I seek that above all else, everything else in my life just seems to be okay and fit. That's my experience, trusting and relying on God, that everything is going to be okay. And that wasn't exactly my experience these last three, God bless, these last 3 years that I keep talking about. It was really like, yeah, God is there, but when is my relationship with my wife going to look like it did before we have kids? Yeah, God is there. Rah, rah, let's pray, meditate. Yeah, let's grab some newcomers and share the message and get deep. But I really need to buy another real estate piece of property, otherwise I'm total failure. Because the first one wasn't working out so good. And I need to have 3 jobs. Because why would you have only 2 jobs if you have 2 little kids and a house that needs to be fixed? Duh, right? You should nod your heads. This makes sense. It doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Self-will and riot. I was off the beat. Not so far gone where a drink seemed like a good idea. That's never returned. When I said it, I meant it was the truth. That's what the existence has been like. And, and I like my house. I love my family. I love my wife. And I love my children. And none of them will keep me sober. Now, my bank account, none of them will keep me sober. My experience is that rests in God's hands alone. And if I will put my life and my will, which is all my thoughts and my actions, that's all. It's not that hard. I know. It seems like a lot. I just have to do the best I can. It doesn't have to be perfect. A lot of people have been trying to help me steer back on path, and at the same time be like, dude, you're human, relax. And don't kill anyone. That's important. You should write that down. Don't kill anyone. Got it. Speaker told me so. We don't normally take requests, but Derek asked me to read this prayer. He did. Derek was so nervous. I was like, I'm going to go up here. I'm going to say whatever I feel like unapologetically. And he's the one that's nervous. Yeah. I can't find it on my phone, so maybe I won't be able to read it to you. I'm sorry. Oh. Let me see. Here it is. I invite you, this was written by a religious person, so if you don't have to get down with it, it's totally fine. Any form of religion or religious people, if you want to make use of them, you can, or if you don't want to, you don't have to. That's what the AA program is all about. It's a spiritual program. But I've found this to be particularly helpful. It was a rather open-minded religious person, by the way. He's a Catholic priest who studied and practiced Buddhism, which is generally a no-no, but he did it anyway. You know why? Because it brought him power and peace of mind. What could be more important than peace of mind? It's not the zeros in my checking account. It's not the daily gym routine. It's the peace of mind. If only I could chase that as much as everything else. It reads, this is by Thomas Merton. My Lord God, I have no idea where I am going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end, nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think I am following your will does not mean that I am actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does, in fact, please you. I hope I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore, I will trust you always. Though I may seem to be lost, and in the shadow of death, I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. So, I would like to extend an invitation if no one has ever had an experience with the steps out of the big book. That is the message that I carry. I would just suggest you do so. You don't have to in order to attend AA. It's just that is the program that we have. And if anyone is somewhere along this journey, I would just like to suggest that you continue. If you're reading, keep reading. If you're writing, keep writing. If you're trudging, just keep trudging. And remember, the force will be with you. Always. That's all I got. God bless.